and welcome back to Good Nightmare, a podcast where today we are focusing on something a little bit more recent. Have you ever wondered where safety seals originated? You find them on anything from makeup to milk to medicine. Today's episode is a little bit more modern than what I usually cover. It takes place in the 1980s. The case of who committed these crimes, or this crime, I suppose, has never been solved. The Chicago Tylenol Murders took place over September and October 1982. On September 29, 1982, several people lost their lives after taking Tylenol. This included 12-year-old Mary Kellerman, 27-year-old Adam Janus, and his 25-year-old brother Stanley, and 19-year-old sister-in-law Teresa. Over the next few days, Mary McFarland, 31, Paula Prince, 35, and Mary Reiner, 27, all died after taking Tylenol. After tests were carried out on these victims, it was found that they had all ingested cyanide, and had all done so when taking Tylenol. Immediately, warnings were sent out via the media, and there were patrols sent out with loudspeakers, warning people throughout Chicago to stop taking Tylenol. The deaths had occurred over different areas of Chicago, and the products had been manufactured at different plants or companies, so it was ruled out that tampering had started at the source, and instead theorized that someone had tampered with the individual bottles in the retail stores. Police believed that the suspect had initially bought or taken the tablet bottles from various stores, tampered with them, and then returned them to shelves. On October 5th, a nationwide recall of the product was issued, and Johnson & Johnson, the manufacturers, sent out warnings to hospitals and suppliers to stop using the product immediately. They also ceased manufacturing in order to reassure the public. Over $100 million worth of product was recalled. During the investigation, a man named James William Lewis sent a note demanding $1 million from Johnson & Johnson in order for him to stop tampering with medicine. However, after lifting prints from the envelope, it was found that he couldn't have been the culprit, as at the time he was living in New York with his wife. He was ultimately convicted of extortion and spent 13 years behind bars. He denies any involvement in the actual poisonings. Roger Arnold was another suspect who was ultimately cleared. Roger suffered a mental breakdown due to the media attention he received for being named as a suspect. He blamed a bar owner named Marty Sinclair for putting his name forward and getting him involved in the case. And in 1983, Roger shot a man he believed to be Sinclair, killing him. Roger served 15 years for the second-degree murder, but was not convicted for any involvement in the Tylenol poisonings. A third suspect named was Laurie Dan, who had committed similar crimes in the area. In 1988, Dan poisoned and shot a number of people in Illinois, but it was ultimately ruled that these crimes were unrelated to the Tylenol murders. The investigation continued, and as recently as 2009, federal agents searched the home of a man named Lewis in Massachusetts. A written statement from the FBI was released explaining the renewal of the investigation. It read, "This review was prompted in part by the recent 25th anniversary of this crime and resulting publicity. Further, given the many recent advances in forensic technology, it was only natural that a second look be taken at the case and recovered evidence." Lewis was not convicted. In 2011, the Unabomber Ted Kaczynski had DNA taken in order for it to be matched against the evidence from the Tylenol murders. Kaczynski, however, denied ever having been involved. Perhaps he was too busy committing his other crimes. There were several copycat incidents that resulted in further deaths, where Excedrin, which thankfully was a hoax in this case, and Caprin and Anasin tablets were tampered with, causing deaths by cyanide poisoning. A woman named Stella Nickel was found to be the culprit in the Excedrin tampering case. She was ultimately sentenced to at least 90 years. Her victims were Susan Snow and Bruce Nickel. Bruce was Stella's husband. Bruce had come home one night on June 5th, 1986, with a headache and took 4 Excedrin, collapsing almost immediately after and later dying at the Harbourview Medical Centre. His death was ruled as having been by natural causes until it was reinvestigated after the death of Susan Snow. Sue had also taken 2 Excedrin in the morning for a headache and was found later that morning by her daughter. Paramedics attended the scene, but Sue could not be revived. The investigation ultimately turned towards Stella, who refused to take a polygraph relating to the deaths. She'd also recently taken to drinking heavily, and it was found that she'd taken out a $76,000 life insurance policy on her husband. This would increase to $100,000 if his death was accidental. As it turns out, Bruce's signature had been forged on at least 2 of the policies taken out against him. In January 1987, Stella's own daughter came forward to police, claiming that her mother had often talked about wanting Bruce dead after having grown bored of the marriage. Her daughter even claimed that Stella had previously tried to murder Bruce using foxglove hidden in medicine capsules to poison him. Stella, not having covered her tracks or even attempted to, was found to have taken out several library books in the days preceding the murder, including poisonings from native and cultivated plants. The book had been borrowed and never returned. In 1888, her case went to trial and she was found guilty of 5 counts of product tampering, 2 resulting in death. She was sentenced to 2 terms of 90 years for the 2 deaths and 3 terms of 10 years for product tampering, to be served concurrently. In 2018, at 75 years old, Stella was eligible for parole. However, it wasn't granted, and she remains in the Federal Correctional Institution in California and won't be released until July 10th, 2040. By this time, she'd be 97. In cases like these, I think it's often incredibly lucky that criminals tend to be quite inept. It was following these murders, both original and copycat, that changes were made in the manufacturing process of these goods. They now include tamper-resistant packaging, including induction seals to prevent tampering or at the least to show evidence of tampering. That's why on medications you'll see those nice little notes that say, "Do not use if seal is broken or missing." You'll often also find them on food products or makeup, anything that can be ingested or used on the skin. For many, the action taken to amend the manufacturing process was too little too late. But we can only imagine how many people have been saved by the swift and now permanent actions taken following the events. Let's hope we don't come across something like this again, at least not anytime soon. I would love to hear your feedback on covering more recent cases. I probably still wouldn't cover anything that's less than 20 to 50 years old, just so that we have at least a little bit of emotional detachment to be able to look at the stories analytically rather than emotionally. Let me know what you think. You can catch me on Facebook at Good Nightmare Pod, on Twitter or Instagram at goodnightmare_s, or via email at goodnightmare_s@outlook.com. Thanks so much for listening. Don't forget to rate and subscribe to the podcast if you enjoyed it. If you feel like leaving a review or sharing it with your friends, that helps me greatly. I hope you're all staying safe and well. And until next time, sweet dreams.